Have you ever genuinely forgiven someone, but still known in your heart that returning to the same relationship, closeness, or level of access would not feel emotionally safe, healthy, or wise? Have you ever felt misunderstood or even judged, as though your forgiveness must not be genuine simply because the relationship has not been reconciled or restored? Have others ever questioned whether you have truly forgiven simply because you still remember what happened, even though you are not remembering to hold on to the hurt, but to hold on to the good and wise lessons you learned so you do not unknowingly place yourself back into the same painful cycle, or into a relationship where your heart no longer feels emotionally safe? If you answered yes to any one or all of these questions, I invite you to keep reading and listen with your heart. What follows is part of my own healing journey and some of the good and wise lessons God has taught me about forgiveness, trust, boundaries, reconciliation, emotional safety, remembering with wisdom, and loving someone without abandoning yourself. I do not question whether I have truly forgiven. I know in my own heart and before God that my forgiveness is genuine. What can be difficult is knowing that other people may judge or question whether forgiveness has been given simply because they have not yet seen the relationship reconciled or restored. They may assume that because the relationship remains distant, unforgiveness must still be present. But reconciliation is not the only proof that forgiveness has taken place. It can be deeply painful when you know between you and God that you have sincerely forgiven someone. Yet others still question the authenticity of your forgiveness and call the condition of your heart into question. Without realizing it, they may be adding more hurt, discomfort, and difficulty to an already painful situation. Instead of allowing you the space you need to heal, they may place pressure upon you to heal, respond, reconcile, or move forward in the way they believe you should. But every heart has its own history. Every person has their own personality, experiences, wounds, needs, and way of processing pain. What healing looks like for one person may not be what healing looks like for another. The distance someone needs may not be punishment, bitterness, or rejection. It may be the only healthy way they currently know to protect their emotional well-being, regain peace, rebuild a sense of safety, and allow God to continue healing their heart. Sometimes the most loving thing others can offer is not pressure. It is patience. It is understanding. It is the humility to admit that they may not fully understand what another person has lived through or what their heart needs in order to heal. And it is trusting that God knows the truth of that person's heart, even when the outward relationship has not yet been reconciled or restored. Sometimes I think that if people truly understood the difference between forgiveness, trust, boundaries, and reconciliation, they would be less likely to judge someone or call the sincerity of their heart into question. They would understand that a relationship remaining unrestored does not automatically mean forgiveness is absent. They would understand that remembering what happened is not always bitterness. Sometimes it is wisdom. Sometimes it is the very lesson God uses to keep a heart from returning to the same painful cycle, or from placing itself back into a relationship where it no longer feels emotionally safe. Only God fully knows the heart. And He knows when forgiveness is genuine, even when wisdom says the relationship cannot safely return to what it once was. Sometimes people judge us based on what they believe they would do, how they think they would handle the situation, or what a particular choice would mean if they were the one making it. But that is one of the dangers of judgment. People can assume they understand why someone is making a certain choice, then interpret that choice through their own motives, personality, experiences, or way of thinking. Yet the reason they would make a choice may not be the reason you made yours. A boundary that looks harsh to one person may have been reached only after years of prayer, grief, forgiveness, repeated hurt, healing heart work, and careful discernment. Distance may look like rejection to someone on the outside, while to the person living it, it may be the healthiest and most loving decision they know how to make. No one else can fully see every tear, prayer, conversation, warning sign, internal struggle, or lesson that brought a heart to that decision. We do not always know a person's history. We may not understand how repeated hurts throughout their life have made emotional safety so vitally important to them in the present. We may not realize how deeply they value trust in their relationships, or how profoundly the breaking of that trust can affect their heart. When trust is broken, the relationship may no longer feel emotionally safe, even after forgiveness has taken place. That does not automatically mean the person is bitter, unforgiving, or unwilling to heal. It may simply mean their heart has learned through painful experience that trust must be handled carefully and rebuilt slowly. We may see only the decision they made, but we do not know the history, repeated hurts, prayers, healing heart work, or hard-earned wisdom that led them there. That is why we should be careful about assigning motives to another person. Only God fully knows the heart. He knows whether a boundary came from bitterness or wisdom. He knows whether distance came from punishment or emotional safety. And He knows when forgiveness is genuine, even when someone else misunderstands the choices that followed it. Sometimes people pressure you to reconcile or restore a relationship because the distance makes them uncomfortable. But they may not fully understand what they are asking of you. They may not understand the pain you experienced, the healing it required, the patterns you had to recognize, or what returning to that relationship could cost your heart emotionally. If they truly understood what they were asking you to risk, they might not place that pressure upon you. Their discomfort does not mean your boundary is wrong. And you are not responsible for making everyone else comfortable by placing yourself back into an uncomfortable situation that no longer feels healthy, trustworthy, emotionally safe, or wise. You can care about their discomfort without allowing it to overrule the wisdom God has given you. Forgiveness has always come fairly easily to me. I have never wanted to hold on to bitterness, seek revenge, or hurt someone because they hurt me. I simply do not have it in me to retaliate or be vindictive. I am usually the last person who wants conflict, drama, or anything that will make an already painful situation worse. I do not want to stir things up, get even, or make another person suffer. My sincere desire is for peace, healing, and freedom for both myself and the person who hurt me. What has changed is the wisdom I now carry alongside forgiveness. I do not want to hurt them by retaliating or being vindictive, just as deeply as I do not want to place myself back into a situation or relationship where they can hurt me again. I can care about their heart while also caring for my own. I can choose not to retaliate without choosing to remain vulnerable to repeated harm. Forgiveness protects my heart from bitterness. Wisdom protects my heart from repeating the same painful cycle. I am responsible for my own choices, healing, boundaries, and heart work, and other people are responsible for theirs. I do not want anyone else to be hurt or uncomfortable, but I also do not believe I should have to keep placing myself in situations that are painful, unhealthy, or emotionally unsafe or uncomfortable for me. I do not want my choices or boundaries to hurt another person, but I also cannot ignore the impact their choices and behavior have had on my own heart. Their heart and healing matters. And mine does too. Caring about another person does not require me to abandon myself. I can have compassion for what they may be feeling and pray for them while still honoring what I need in order to remain healthy, peaceful, emotionally safe, and wise. I do not want to hurt them. But I also do not believe love asks me to keep allowing myself to be hurt. I have learned that sometimes the healthiest and wisest response is space and time. Space does not have to mean punishment, hatred, or rejection. Sometimes space and time become part of God's solution. The closer we remain to a painful situation, the harder it can sometimes be to see it clearly. Emotions are often still raw. Reactions are often still fresh. Space has a way of quieting the noise. Time has a way of bringing clarity. Together they create room for prayer, honest reflection, wisdom, emotional healing, and discernment. Sometimes space is not the problem. Sometimes space is part of the solution. That space and time can become a healing season for each individual person, but healing must be chosen. No one else can do another person's heart work for them. Each of us has to be willing to look honestly within, own our part, accept responsibility, welcome accountability, and look in the mirror. Healing also requires a willingness to lay down pride, walk in humility, and admit when we have been wrong. That applies to all of us, including me. I have had to do that same humbling heart work in my own life. I have had to face my wounds, insecurities, unhealthy patterns, and mistakes. Learning to steward my own heart wisely has never been about escaping responsibility. It has been about taking responsibility for the one heart God entrusted to my care while allowing Him to work in every heart according to His timing. I am still learning and growing. I have also learned that not every heart heals in exactly the same way. For some people, remaining in close proximity to the person who hurt them genuinely feels safe and supports their healing journey. If that is true for you, I sincerely rejoice with you. But for others, remaining in close proximity no longer feels emotionally safe. Neither response should become the measuring stick by which we judge another person's heart. Every person has their own story, their own life experiences, their own personality, their own wounds. What feels emotionally safe and healthy for one person may not feel emotionally safe and healthy for another. I gently encourage us not to measure another person's healing journey by our own. Just because something has been healthy for one person does not necessarily mean it will be healthy for another. Only God fully knows a person's heart. Only He knows their history. Only He knows what they have lived through. And only He knows what they need in order to heal. But it was not always only about trying to do the right thing. Sometimes I was simply anxious to have my friend back because I genuinely loved them, missed them, and wanted things to be good between us again. My heart longed for the friendship, the closeness, and the connection we once shared. Because I wanted restoration so deeply, I can now see that I may have overlooked important red flags or signs that the relationship was not yet ready to be restored. Without realizing it, I sometimes place myself back into circumstances where I experience the same painful patterns again, creating more heartache and leaving me with even more healing heart work to do. I eventually regretted returning to those painful cycles because the very thing I never wanted to happen happened again. But through those experiences, my eyes slowly became opened. What I have to remember is that I was not then where I am now. I had not yet learned the good and wise lessons that experience, healing, and God have since taught me. I cannot judge my former self by wisdom I had not yet gained. I was acting from love, hope, and the understanding I had at the time. I simply did not know then what I know now. But once wisdom teaches you something, you cannot unknow it. I may have done my own healing heart work, but that did not automatically mean the other person had done theirs. Healing is an individual journey. No one can choose it for someone else. No one can do another person's heart work for them. In some situations, I reconciled or restored a relationship before trust had been rebuilt. Before lasting change had been demonstrated. Before the deeper issues that contributed to the hurt had been honestly acknowledged and addressed with love, kindness, humility, and accountability. Looking back, I also realized that I sometimes moved toward those conversations hoping they would become healthy conversations. But wisdom has taught me that healthy conversations require more than good intentions. They require two hearts that are both willing and able to approach one another with love, kindness, humility, respect, honesty, and emotional safety. Looking at a person's past track record and remembering that track record is not the same as holding on to unforgiveness. It is allowing wisdom to remember the good, wise lessons love has already learned. Remembering is not about replaying the hurt. It is about remembering the lessons that help keep us from unknowingly placing ourselves back into the same painful cycle. A person's past track record does not mean they can never change. People can heal. People can grow. People can become trustworthy. But genuine change is revealed over time through a consistent pattern of humility, responsibility, accountability, loving actions, and proven trustworthiness. Until those things become evident, wisdom simply chooses to move thoughtfully rather than quickly. Unfortunately, because I had not yet learned those good and wise lessons, I sometimes moved forward before those healthy foundations were truly in place. That created even more heartache, and, in some cases, those repeated patterns eventually contributed to the breaking, loss, or final ending of the relationship. The last thing I ever wanted was for the relationship to end or for the hurt to happen again. I cannot know what another person believed or intended, but perhaps my willingness to repeatedly forgive and restore access without requiring lasting change unintentionally communicated that my boundaries could always be compromised. Perhaps they believed the same behavior could happen again and that I would eventually overlook it, absorb the pain, or restore everything as I had before. I understand now that forgiving someone does not require me to keep making the same compromise. Love can remain in my heart while access changes. I can miss someone. I can love them deeply. I can remember what was beautiful about the relationship. And I can still recognize that returning to it may place me back into a cycle I am no longer willing to repeat, or into an emotional environment that no longer feels safe for my heart. I was sincerely trying to do the right thing. I was not knowingly choosing something unhealthy or unwise. I was responding from the love, hope, and understanding I had at the time. But trying to do what appears to be the right thing does not always mean it is the healthiest, safest, wisest, or most loving thing. Forgiveness can be freely given. Reconciliation requires more. It requires honesty, accountability, humility, healing, changed behavior, rebuilt trust, emotional safety, and the willing participation of both people. Wisdom now teaches me that I can genuinely forgive without people-pleasing. Without carrying a sense of religious obligation to reconcile. Without allowing my longing for someone to cause me to overlook warning signs. And without rushing to restore a relationship that is not yet healthy, safe, trustworthy, or ready. I have also learned that space and limited access can serve a meaningful purpose for everyone involved. It gives each person an opportunity to step back, reflect honestly, and recognize their own contribution to an unhealthy relational pattern. Sometimes a person may sincerely believe that someone else is entirely responsible for the problems in a relationship. But when there is distance and the same struggles continue appearing in other relationships, it can become an opportunity to recognize that there may also be unresolved places within their own heart that need attention. As the saying goes, wherever you are, there you are. We all carry our unhealed wounds, fears, insecurities, beliefs, and patterns with us. When they remain unacknowledged and unresolved, they can follow us from one relationship into another. We may unintentionally repeat the same conflicts or hurt new people, even when the names and circumstances have changed. That does not mean every relational problem belongs entirely to one person. Relationships are complex, and each person must honestly examine their own part. But healing requires a willingness to look within rather than placing all responsibility outside ourselves. Space does not have to be punishment or rejection. Sometimes it is the very thing that gives both people the clarity needed to see what could not be seen while they were still caught in the cycle. My prayer is that distance becomes an invitation to reflection, accountability, humility, wisdom, and healing, not only for me but for everyone involved. I have also learned that I do not need an apology from someone before I can forgive them. Their willingness or unwillingness to acknowledge what happened does not have to determine whether I remain emotionally bound to the hurt. I have learned not to make another person's harmful choices a statement about my worth. People often act from what is happening within their own hearts, their wounds, fears, insecurities, beliefs, and unresolved pain. That does not excuse what they did, but it helps me understand that their behavior came from something within them, not from the value of the person they hurt. I am genuinely happy when someone reaches the place where they can take responsibility, offer a sincere apology, and ask for forgiveness. That kind of honesty, humility, and accountability can become a beautiful and important part of their own healing journey. But I do not have to wait for those words before I begin healing. I can forgive even if I never see them again. I can forgive even if they never acknowledge what happened. I can forgive even if they never apologize. Their apology may help bring healing and freedom to them, but my forgiveness brings healing and freedom to me. Forgiveness is something I choose with God's help so that what happened does not continue holding my heart captive. People often say, "Forgive and forget," but I do not know that it is always humanly possible or even wise to completely forget what happened. With God's help, it is possible to forgive. But God also teaches us to walk in wisdom. And wisdom is vital to our healing because it helps us recognize unhealthy patterns and keeps us from repeatedly placing ourselves in the same painful situations. There is a difference between remembering with unforgiveness in your heart and remembering with wisdom and forgiveness in your heart. Remembering with unforgiveness can keep reopening the wound, feeding resentment, or holding on to a desire for retaliation. Remembering with wisdom acknowledges the truth of what happened, receives the lesson, maintains healthy boundaries, honors emotional safety, and chooses not to repeat the same painful cycle. Forgiveness does not require pretending that something never happened. It means I am choosing not to carry a desire for revenge in my heart. Wisdom helps me remember what I learned so I can move forward in a healthier and safer way. I can remember without hatred. I can forgive without forgetting the lesson. I can love someone and still recognize that trust, closeness, access, comfort, emotional safety, and reconciliation may need to look different. Remembering is also important for the person who caused the hurt. Honest reflection and accountability can help someone recognize the wounds, patterns, or choices that led them to hurt people they say they love. Without remembering, acknowledging, and learning from what happened, the same behavior may be repeated, intentionally or unintentionally. Forgiveness releases the debt. Wisdom remembers the lesson. Remembering does not mean we are living in the past. It can mean we are allowing God to redeem what we learned from it so the same pain does not continue repeating itself in our lives or in the lives of others. I also want to be careful not to speak as though I am better, wiser, or more spiritually mature than anyone else. I make mistakes too. I have had my own wounds, insecurities, unhealthy patterns, and places where God needed to heal and grow me. I am still learning, growing, and allowing Him to work in my heart. One thing I can honestly say is that I never intentionally want to hurt anyone. Because I did not want my own unresolved pain to continue hurting me or spilling over onto other people, I chose years ago to begin doing the difficult healing heart work. I did not do it perfectly and healing did not happen overnight. It was hard and humbling heart work, but I knew I did not want to remain trapped in patterns that could continue causing me or anyone else pain. God is the only one who defines me. I did not always understand or experience that truth growing up, but through my healing journey I began learning that who I am is who He says I am. As I learned to receive His love, see myself through His eyes, and love myself with the love He gives me, something within me began to change. Even when I do not get everything right, even when I make mistakes, His love reminds me that my worth and identity do not disappear. Learning to see myself through His eyes has also helped me learn to see others through His eyes. Even when they do not get it right, even when they make mistakes, and even when their choices cause pain, I can still remember that they are deeply loved by God and in need of His truth, grace, healing, and love just as I am. Seeing someone through God's eyes does not mean excusing harmful behavior or removing necessary boundaries. It means refusing to let their worst choices become the only definition I hold of them. God is still the one who defines them too. That is also why my heart is not to shame, judge, condemn, or guilt anyone who has hurt me. I genuinely want healing and freedom for them. There can be things beneath the surface that have been forgiven by the person who was hurt but still need to be healed within the person who caused the hurt so the same behavior does not continue affecting other people and relationships. I do not take another person's hurtful behavior as a statement about my worth. Even when someone has deliberately chosen to hurt me, I understand that people often act from what is happening within their own hearts. Their choices may reveal unresolved pain, fear, insecurity, low self-worth, identity struggles, pride, or unhealthy patterns that need attention and healing. That does not excuse harmful behavior, but it helps me remember not to make their actions the definition of who I am. People do the things they do because of what is operating within them, not because their behavior determines the value of the person they hurt. In that sense, behavior can sometimes reveal what is happening beneath the surface. I do not claim to know another person's heart or every reason behind what they do. Only God fully knows that. But repeated unhealthy and hurtful behavior can reveal that there may be deeper issues needing honesty, accountability, healing, and change. Healing usually begins with an honest willingness to recognize that there may be places within us that still need attention. When any of us believes there is nothing we need to examine, it can become difficult to recognize how unresolved hurts, insecurities, low self-worth, fear, pride, or unhealthy patterns may be influencing our behavior and relationships. I do not say that with shame, judgment, guilt, or condemnation. I have needed that same kind of honest heart work in my own life, and I am still growing. I simply know that what remains unacknowledged often remains unhealed. And what remains unhealed can continue creating painful cycles. Love is patient, and I can be patient because I understand that genuine healing takes time. My greatest hope for anyone, including those who have deeply hurt me, is that they become healed, free, and whole. I sincerely mean that. I would rather see someone do the healing heart work and become free, even if we never reconcile or restore the relationship on this side of heaven, than see them remain trapped in pain that continues affecting their lives and the people around them. I know in my own heart that I have forgiven them. A restored relationship is not the only proof that forgiveness has taken place. Forgiving someone does not automatically restore comfort, trust, or a sense of emotional safety around them. It does not mean I will immediately want to spend time with them again, return to the closeness we once shared, or give them the same access to my heart and life that they previously had. Forgiveness is not a pill we take and then suddenly begin feeling better once the medicine takes effect. Our hearts, minds, and bodies can still remember what happened. Healing from the impact of someone's choices can take time, even after forgiveness has sincerely taken place. God sees and knows my heart. I can trust that He knows I have forgiven those who hurt me, including those who deliberately chose to do so. I can also know in my heart that I did not deserve what was said to me, or about me, or done to me. Recognizing that something was wrong or undeserved does not mean I am holding on to bitterness. It means I am being honest about what happened. And it reveals that I have learned to place just as much importance on loving and caring for my own heart as I do the hearts of others. I did not always know how to take care of my heart. But God lovingly showed me and taught me that I count too. My heart matters too. My emotional well-being matters too. My need for trust, safety, peace, and healing matters too. We are told to love others as we love ourselves. But in order to do that, we must also learn what it means to genuinely love ourselves. Not with selfishness or pride, but with the same compassion, patience, grace, protection, and care we so freely extend to everyone else. Learning to love myself with God's love has helped me understand that I no longer have to abandon my own heart in order to prove that I love someone else. I do not need to prove the sincerity of my forgiveness by returning to a relationship that has proven it's not healthy, trustworthy, or emotionally safe for my heart. Reconciliation is not the only evidence that forgiveness is real. Forgiveness can be genuine even when trust has not been rebuilt and the relationship cannot be restored. When reconciliation is used as the only measure of whether someone has genuinely forgiven, it can unintentionally place the full responsibility for a broken relationship upon the person who was hurt. It can also leave deeper issues, harmful choices, and necessary accountability unaddressed. I cannot judge another person's heart or assume I know their motives. I can only be honest about my own heart, maintain the boundaries I believe are wise, and leave each person responsible before God for their own choices, healing, accountability, and heart work. I do not need anyone else to agree with my boundaries for my forgiveness to be real. God knows whether I have released bitterness, whether I have chosen not to seek revenge, and whether I genuinely desire healing and freedom for everyone involved. Wisdom has also taught me to stop people-pleasing and feeling responsible for making everyone else comfortable, especially when doing so comes at the expense of my own comfort, peace, emotional well-being, and sense of safety. I can care about how others feel without abandoning what my own heart needs. I can be compassionate toward their discomfort without allowing it to pressure me into a situation that does not feel healthy, trustworthy, or emotionally safe. I did not create the discomfort that now exists. I am simply learning from the discomfort their choices and behavior created for me and responding to it with healthier boundaries and greater wisdom. I do not have the power, and neither does anyone else, to shield another person from every natural consequence their own choices may have brought into their life. Trying to remove every consequence may only prevent them from recognizing what needs to be acknowledged, healed, and changed. I am not rejoicing in their discomfort, nor do I take pleasure in any painful consequences they may experience. But I will sincerely rejoice in their healing if that discomfort becomes the catalyst that awakens them, leads them to pursue their own healing journey, and encourages them to do the necessary heart work. Sometimes discomfort can lovingly reveal what comfort allowed us to avoid. My prayer is that it leads not to shame or condemnation, but leads their hearts to honest reflection, accountability, growth, wisdom, and healing from the inside out, not only for their own freedom and well-being, but also for the health of every present and future relationship in their life. While I may not feel comfortable being in close proximity to them, I truly am at peace with them in my heart, not because what happened was acceptable, but because I do not desire retaliation and I will not choose vindictiveness. I sincerely wish them well. I pray that they are blessed and that they flourish and thrive, and that they experience the deep healing in their hearts that only comes through the love of God. I am continually encouraging people to pursue healing, helping them when they are hurting and ministering to wounded hearts. The last thing I would ever want is to wish pain upon someone simply because they caused pain in my life. I do not want them to experience the hurt they caused me. I do not want them to be hurt, and I do not want them to continue hurting others in the ways they once hurt me. My prayer is not that they somehow get what they deserve. My prayer is that the cycle stops. I pray they receive mercy, truth, accountability, healing, and freedom before those unresolved places cause any more pain in their lives or relationships. My prayer is that God lovingly brings truth into every place that needs His light, heals what is wounded, and frees them from anything that could continue hurting them or the people they love. My hope is not retaliation. My hope is redemption. What I sincerely wish for them is healing, not only for their own good, but for the good of everyone whose life and heart they touch. Sometimes, after each person has willingly pursued their own healing and done the necessary heart work, restoration may become possible under circumstances that are healthy, healed, emotionally safe, and proven trustworthy over time. But that is not something that can be forced, rushed, pressured, assumed, or promised. It must be carefully discerned. And it should not be considered until genuine individual healing has taken place within each person, lasting change has been demonstrated, and the relationship has become emotionally safe enough for trust to begin being rebuilt. With time, wisdom, prayer, discernment, emotional safety, and consistent evidence of genuine change, the heart may begin to recognize whether it is safe and healthy to open that door again. Restoration should never be treated as proof that forgiveness has taken place. Sometimes healing leads to a beautifully restored relationship. Other times healing brings the clarity and peace to recognize that the relationship should remain at a distance. Either way, I can continue to love them and pray for them, and when necessary do so from a safe distance. My prayer is for healing, freedom, and God's wisdom to guide every step for every heart. I know firsthand how life-changing it is to learn that our true identity, worth, and value come from Christ. His definition of love is the only definition that is completely true and trustworthy. I pray for every heart, including my own, to continue learning who He says we are and how He teaches us to love. I honestly believe that kind of healing would resolve so many relational issues across the board. Thankfully, when we get to heaven, these kinds of painful trials will be no more. But while we are still here, it would bring me genuine joy to hear that someone who once hurt me became healed, free, and whole, even if our relationship was never restored here. I would be happy for them, not only for their own sake but also for the blessing their healing could bring into every other relationship in their life. I do not wish harm upon them. I wish healing, freedom, blessing, and wholeness for them. At the same time, until genuine healing produces lasting fruit, forgiveness does not automatically mean restored trust, renewed access, comfort, emotional safety, closeness, or reconciliation. Forgiveness can be freely given. Reconciliation requires more. It requires ongoing honesty, accountability, humility, healing, changed behavior, rebuilt trust, emotional safety, and the willing participation of both people. Forgiveness has always been a gift I could give. Wisdom has taught me when or whether restored access should and should not follow it. I did not know back then what I know now. But now that I know better, wisdom asks me to choose differently. That is not unforgiveness. That is forgiveness walking hand in hand with wisdom. Everything I have shared here has been spoken from a heart of love, not to shame, judge, condemn, or expose anyone, but to share the good and wise lessons God has taught me through my own healing journey. My hope is that something I have learned may help another heart recognize the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, between remembering with bitterness and remembering with wisdom, and between loving someone and giving them access that has not yet been safely re-earned. These good, wise lessons were not learned easily. But I pray they will become something beautiful in the hands of God, something that brings clarity, healing, freedom, and peace to someone else who may need them. Before I close, I want to leave you with a gentle moment for your own heart. Take a slow breath. Place your hand over your heart and remind yourself, I am allowed to heal. I am allowed to learn and grow. I am allowed to forgive without returning to what no longer feels emotionally safe. I am allowed to love someone while also honoring the wisdom God has given me. I do not have to prove the sincerity of my forgiveness by reopening a door that has not yet become healthy, trustworthy, or safe. It brings me deep peace knowing that God knows my heart. He knows every tear, every prayer I still pray over them, every lesson I had to learn, and every boundary I finally found the courage to honor. And He knows your heart too. So please do not allow the misunderstanding or judgment of others to make you feel that you must prove what God already knows to be true. You know when you have released bitterness. You know you are not seeking revenge. You know when you sincerely desire healing and freedom for everyone involved. And God knows too. Other people may not understand the way you need to heal. They may not understand your history, your personality, the depth of what you experienced, or why emotional safety is so important to your heart. But their lack of understanding does not make your healing wrong. Their discomfort does not mean you must move faster. Their questions do not make your forgiveness less genuine. And their pressure does not have to determine what happens next or the timing of it. You can move forward without hatred. You can remember without bitterness. You can forgive without abandoning yourself. You can love and pray for someone while still keeping the safe distance your heart may need. And you can trust God to guide you if the day ever comes when genuine healing, lasting change, rebuilt trust, and emotional safety make restoration possible. Until then, let peace guard your heart. Let wisdom guide your steps. Let love remain and lead you always. And allow God to continue turning every hard-earned lesson into something beautiful that can help another heart find healing, freedom, clarity, and peace. I have spoken here today with love. I have spoken wisdom here in these moments from my healing journey. And I sincerely hope these hard-earned, good, wise lessons help another heart find its way forward. May we all continue to forgive fully, walk wisely, and always let love lead the way. Heart to heart in his love, Momo Smiley.